Hey, Gorge, we're back in the office, and I have a new picture hanging behind my head, and it's very, very pretty. Mom brought it home for herself and for the house. The second I saw it, I'm like, mine! And she said, pay me for it, and I said, okay. And that is what has been done. So I now have a new picture, and it's very, very pretty, and I no longer look like I have antlers with that tree decoration thing that used to be back there. By the way, I'm your resident active advocate, and today I am making a morning video because I've gone back to work, which is amazing because that means I have no more cause for boredom. But we are continuing today on our perusal through the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Persons, which is very, very pretty. So, we shall commence as of me getting the document maximized. Ba-bam, right there, haha. I'm so happy to have my office back. Oh my god, making videos in my bedroom? Awkward! It also gets really, really hot in there with all this tech. I love my computer, but yeah, it's hot. Alright, so to continue, because you're not interested in my life story, Article 27. States shall establish and implement, in conjunction with Indigenous peoples concerned, a fair, independent, impartial, open, and transparent process, giving due recognition to Indigenous peoples' laws, traditions, customs, and land tenure systems. Hi, I can read. And land tenure systems to recognize and adjudicate the rights of Indigenous peoples pertaining to their lands, territories, and resources, including those which were traditionally owned or otherwise occupied or used. Indigenous peoples shall have the right to participate in this process. Okay, so the most I have to say about this one is basically what I had to say about the artifacts argument. Give them back their stuff! Thank you! Okay, that includes land, resources, the aforementioned artifacts, and the rights to hold their own laws, councils, and, hell, their own opinions about what should be done on their own lands. Land belongs to them. A lot of people on the more conservative side of Canadian politics will say no one has the right to come into our country and tell us what to do with our country. My argument against that is that Canada is not a melting pot. It is a tossed salad, or so we like to preach. So we need to practice what we preach and allow people to express their national identity when they come to our country. You can't tell an Italian to stop eating pasta, for example, okay? That's a stereotype. But, okay, you can't tell a person to stop being who they are, is the argument that I am trying to make here. That applies especially on this continent to Indigenous people, because, sorry people, they were here first. By the way, it's election day in Canada. I'm an anarchist, but that being said, get out there and vote if you are of age and if you are a Canadian citizen, because the only way to keep the Conservatives out of office is to vote for someone else. Just saying. I might not like government in general, but there are certain kinds of government I like better than others. So just as a safety blanket, I'm going to say, get out there and vote. I assume that if you're watching this content at all, you're probably not conservative, because that is not what this channel is at all, ever. Yeah, okay, that's just my little PSA, but we're going to continue on with this. Brip. Okay, Article 28, subsection. Okay, so 1. Indigenous peoples have the right to redress by means that can include restitution or, when this is not possible, just, fair, and equitable compensation for the lands, territories, and resources which they have traditionally owned or otherwise occupied or used, and which have been confiscated, taken, occupied, used, or damaged without their free, prior, and informed consent. 2. Unless otherwise freely agreed upon by the peoples concerned. Compensation shall take the form of lands, territories, and resources equal in quality, size, and legal status, or of monetary compensation or other appropriate redress. Okay. This one's important. Even under capitalism, which is not the original system that, people used for money for trade on this continent, okay? Capitalism is a European invention. Even under capitalism, we expect a kind of equal exchange of money for goods or of goods for other goods. Under the original systems on this continent, it would be a system of physical trade, oftentimes anyway. So it's like, you give me, this is just a crude example, okay? You give me 2 fish in exchange for my firewood, or you give me that jeweled necklace in exchange for this jeweled bracelet, that kind of thing. Generally, what is expected in systems of commerce is that one will get the bang for their buck, okay? So if you pay $1 million for a car, you're going to expect something really nice, like a Ferrari or a Lamborghini, all the really high-end sport car kind of thing, right? I don't know if those cost $1 million. It's probably less than that, but this is just an example, okay? Basically, what I am saying is that if you're going to take someone's stuff, at least give them proper compensation for it. That in the past and currently in the present has not been done at all. And you can see this all over the reserves or the reservations, depending on whether you're in Canada or America. These lands are kind of crappy, I'm not gonna lie, and we took a lot of their territory and correspondingly a lot of their resources and everything that they used to live on and gave them not very much in exchange. We gave them unfair deals, unfair treaties, unfair laws by which they had to abide, but we did not, because we're the ones who gave the laws, so of course we don't have to abide by our own laws. Right? Thumbs up. Next. Good Lord. That one pisses me off. All right. Article 29. 1. Indigenous peoples have the right to the conservation and protection of the environment and the productive capacity of their lands or territories and resources. States shall establish and implement assistance programs for Indigenous peoples for such conservation and protection without discrimination. Pipelines! Pipelines! Okay, that's pretty much the only word I need to say, and you get exactly where I am coming from. 2. States shall take effective measures to ensure that no storage or disposal of hazardous materials shall take place in the lands or territories of Indigenous peoples without their free, prior, and informed consent. Pretty sure you can tell just by the tone in which I read that one that, that definitely hasn't happened. Oh my God. Talk about toxic waste on the Bruce Peninsula. I've been out to the Bruce Peninsula. Absolutely magnificently beautiful part of Canada. But it's also in certain spots very highly contaminated by literal nuclear waste. What are we doing? 3. States shall also take effective measures to ensure, as needed, that programs for monitoring, maintaining, and restoring the health of Indigenous peoples, as developed and implemented by the peoples affected by such materials, are duly implemented. Yeah. Moving on. I can't even talk about that one. That is what has happened thus far. I'm gonna bring up my camera just so I can see what my face looks like. What has happened thus far with that one is not good. Like, really, the reason why I say get out and vote is literally just to keep the lesser of two evils out of office. But it doesn't seem like any government that has ever been elected on the federal level in Canadian society really cares about the conditions that are present on reserves. And I have brought this example up again and again, but there's that TikTok video that I saw a couple of days ago, maybe a couple of weeks ago now, where someone living on reserve is running their tap and the water is literally coming out black. What century, what country, what part of what country are we living in here, people? Okay? I don't care if you're living in rural Nunavut, all right? Just keep going north for a couple of weeks. I don't care how far north, how far distant you get from, the center of most, population in Canada. Everyone deserves access to clean water at the very freaking least. All right? We need to make sure that the people who are under the care of our government, because the feds are the ones who look after, in quotation marks, the reserves. We need to ensure that the people who are under our care are the ones who are being cared for. If we're going to be all paternalistic about this and say, we need to look after you and here's how we're going to do it, we need to actually do it. Rather than just saying, okay, here's your land, you're on your own, and we don't need to give you anything else. Bye. You can't do that, okay? If you're going to be a government, govern. Don't just sit back and let people starve. Don't just sit back and let people die because it's less convenient for you to take action. Justin Trudeau, who's probably going to be reelected, by the way. One non-criticism for Trudeau that I have is that he has at least handled the pandemic reasonably well. Despite the idiots that live in this country and don't want to be vaccinated, if you don't want to be vaccinated, yes, I am talking to you, and no, I am not sorry. You are putting my life at risk as well as those of the children and the elders who surround you, and anyone else with, issues with their immune system. Despite the idiots who live in this country, who don't want to be vaccinated, or even despite, and this is much rarer, people who can't be vaccinated because of allergies and such, I have to admit, Trudeau has done a pretty good job, okay? Compared to, say, America. You would expect, because we have 10% of America's population, that we would have roughly 10% of America's death rate as well. No, it's a lot lower than that, actually. So I think that the response from the federal level down has been reasonably good. We've lost a lot of people, and that is not good. Okay, this is a global pandemic, right? So we need to recognize it for the bad thing that it is and take action against it. Take preventative measures, because an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So goes the old-timey saying. All right, continuing. Or hang on. Where did I start? I'm sorry. Just a sec. 27, 28, 29. Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, sorry, we're keeping going. I lost count. Okay, Article 30. Military activities shall not take place in the lands or territories of Indigenous peoples, unless justified by a relevant public interest or otherwise freely agreed with or requested by the Indigenous peoples concerned. Sorry, that was subpoint 1. This is subdivided as the previous one was. Okay. I have to admit, I don't know that much about this, but I do know that federal police are the ones who tend to look after the reserves, and that the rate of arrest on reserve is significantly higher than the rest of the country. I have said this before as well, the RCMP, Royal Canadian Mounted Police, who are Canada's federal police force. The original purpose and the reason why this federal police force was created was to ensure that little children were kept inside the residential schools where they supposedly belonged. You know, because the scared 4-year-old is the biggest threat to our country's stability. Yeah. No. Okay? I don't like the police. I don't. I've never personally been harmed by them. I've never been bothered by them. I'm also a white female. So, you know, take this for what it's worth and do your research. Minority populations are much more heavily brutalized and much more heavily observed by the police because they could be a threat and do something wrong. But you're not going to look at the bunch of white people running around with guns and knives. You know, the young white men who tend to be more heavily radicalized and more often radicalized than non-young white men. Just saying. And I'm not speaking on behalf of an entire population here, okay? Or any entire populations, plural. I'm just talking about regular trends. All right. Point 2. States shall undertake effective consultations with the Indigenous peoples concerned through appropriate procedures and, in particular, through their representative institutions prior to using their lands or territories for military activities. Again, I don't know enough about this to be able to comment on this one. If you know, please let me know. And I'm putting this up on Twitter as well. If you see this and you're on my Twitter, let me know, because I am friends with a couple Indigenous people on Twitter, and I love you all because you're beautiful and brilliant. And we are moving on. Article 31, and I do believe this is the last for today. Yeah, Article 31, subdivided. 1. Indigenous peoples have the right to maintain, control, protect, and develop their cultural heritage, traditional knowledge, and traditional cultural expressions, as well as the manifestations of their sciences, technologies, and cultures, including human and genetic resources. Seeds, medicines, knowledge of the properties of fauna and flora, oral traditions, literatures, designs, sports, and traditional games, and visual and performing arts. They also have the right to maintain, control, protect, and develop their intellectual property over such cultural heritage, traditional knowledge, and traditional cultural expressions. Okay, before we move on, I want to talk about that one in full. Indigenous art in this country is on the rise, and I love it. It's not just music, it's also the visual arts and any other kind of art you can think of, and that is amazing. I have a friend on Twitter. He's brilliant and wonderful. He really, really is, and he does beading. It's some of the most beautiful stuff I've ever seen. It's like, holy crap, how do you do this? Your hands are huge, like, compared to mine. You would think that I would have more dexterity for that kind of thing, but I don't. Yeah, he is an incredible artist. He's also an activist in his own right, and I love that. Love that for him. Love that for the Indigenous communities. Plural, although, you know, you can't group them all together because different nations are going to want different things. But I really, really like the fact that Indigenous art is finally being put under a spotlight. Not to mention the fact that they have the right to copyright just like everyone else does. All right? You can't just go and steal their stories anymore. You can't just go and steal their art and their music anymore. That and the ancient art, shall we say. Give them back their stuff! She bellows as she backs away from the screen. All right. That is a really important point because in my mind, art and, science, all this intellectual stuff, that's what's really going to keep the people alive. Art, language, literature, science, the expression of their culture. That's what's going to keep them alive more than any law could ever do. Next. Okay, subpoint 2, and then we're done. In conjunction with Indigenous peoples, states shall take effective measures to recognize and protect the exercise of these rights. Okay, I don't need to expand upon that. You heard what I had to say. And like I say, I go gaga for this intellectual stuff. I mean, the arts, the humanities, literature, science. Like I say, this is what makes a people, all right? It's not just what laws do we live by. Those are important too, but it's what the people themselves do as groups and as individuals that really makes the bacon cook. Bacon. Yeah, I'm not a vegetarian and I love bacon. I really do. Pork more than turkey. Yeah, so that's basically my commentary on that last point. And good thing that we can end on a high note. Because some of this can be a bummer, but as I have said, any good document, legal or otherwise, that can make you happy, that can make you upset, that can make you think, that can make you do something, that's a good document, all right? So, as my wrap-up for today, if you are a Canadian citizen and if you are 18 years of age or older, vote, for God's sake, thank you. And I will see you all tomorrow for another video on this lovely, lovely series. And I'm very, 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 very happy to be going back to work because then I don't have to be bored. Yay! Lovely. Like, seriously, for the past couple of months, this is the most interesting thing I would do all day. And I'm really, really happy that I have the opportunity not only to do this, but to make friends through doing this because you guys are wonderful and I love you all. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and, all that good shit. And I will see you tomorrow, you beautiful people. Mwah! Bye!